Welcome to Farm Charm Chic. I'm Emily. Today's video is a fall kickoff for 2025. I am so excited to share with you all of these beautiful fall DIYs. I know a lot of us are getting ready for craft shows for fall, trying to come up with ideas. Some of us are just very excited to get those fall leaves and pumpkins into our home decor. Either way, I've got you covered with some great fall DIYs. If you like crafting, DIYs, dupes, hacks, thrift flips, or just creating in general, I would love if you would consider subscribing. When you do see your favorite project today, remember to hit that thumbs up, but let's go make some fall DIYs. I am so excited to show you this project because it is so fun and simple and it turns out so cute. So I'm just showing you that I took some paint sticks and I just cut them down to size. You could easily use some craft sticks or the jumbo craft sticks if you would like. But these bigger sticks I have right here, not sticks, these are like the planks. I think they're just like wood planks. They come 6 or so in a package from Dollar Tree. So I'm just taking 3 of those and I'm just kind of spacing them, you can see, with a little bit of space so it kind of looks like a palette, but I'm also staggering the length. So I push that middle one down just a little bit so that way it kind of gives it the shape of a pumpkin is what I'm going for here. Now this is going to be the back, so again you can use the craft sticks, but I just thought those paint sticks, if you could see those through the little space that I provided there, I liked that. Now I'm just using a pumpkin color of chalk paint here and I'm just going to paint this front and back, make sure it's completely covered. And then I just like to, if you guys have watched me, you know I love to distress everything. So I just take my little emery board and I go all over each of the edges, also in between the little grooves that I left there to kind of give it that worn and farmhouse touch. Now, like a lot of crafters I know, I have a hard time throwing anything away. So this is just a piece off of one of the little sponge tools, the painting tools that I use. And so I'm just sanding the edges so it kind of gives it a fun little softer shape to it. And then I'm just going to paint this with just some green moss color chalk paint. And this is just going to be the cute little stem to my pumpkin. So I just go ahead and paint this and then I distress it a little bit. And then I'm just going to use some hot glue and then I'm just going to glue that on. And I put my glue down and I kind of then space my pumpkin to make sure that none of the glue is showing up over the edge or anything and that it's a good height to the pumpkin there. So now comes the fun part of embellishing this. So I'm just taking a leaf off of one of the Dollar Tree picks that I had from fall. You use any kind of leaf or anything, even some like a fabric leaf would be really cute. And I'm just gluing that on with some hot glue and just kind of softens the look of it. And I'll just take a little extra glue here, glue down any parts that are sticking up kind of how I don't want them. And then I thought it would be really cute to use some Spanish moss. So I'm just putting a little bit of glue onto the top of the pumpkin. And then you can see here, I'm just putting a little bit of glue on the back. And I'll use my little silicone tool here just to push that down. And then I have this cute little pipberry that I had that came, I got this at Hobby Lobby, but I have seen some at Dollar Tree. So if you can get some there, definitely do that. And I just kind of wrap it around like my brush to give it a little curly Q type of style to it. And I just wrap it on that little stem there, and I thought that just kind of was cute, acted like a little pumpkin vine or something, just a cute little embellishment on there. I love having projects like this and getting to use your creativity to kind of embellish and decorate them. Now I'm just taking some raffia and I'm just going to tie this in a knot around that little stem, and I left it long because I wanted to kind of see how much I needed to cut off. So after I get that tied off, I just kind of eyeball it and do my best judge on like where I want to cut it. And then you can kind of crinkle this with your fingers or to anything you want to do to give it a little bit more of a farmhouse look. But I just take the extra pieces that I have and tie just like a little shoestring, like a loop bow there, and tie a little piece around it. To me, this is the easiest way to tie raffia rather than to actually try and tie the bow. And then I'm just using some hot glue to glue that right over the knot that I tied before. Now this would be really cute to kind of lean up against something, or you could even add it to another sign if you had made a bigger sign, but I just take a little tumbling tower block and glue that onto the back to help it stand. Look at how adorable this turns out. I love it, and it was not that much money to create, so you could definitely do this on a budget, and I think it turns out so cute, and it is definitely that perfect farmhouse fall touch. For this DIY, we're going to dress up a wooden garland. Now you can buy wooden garlands at Hobby Lobby. They have them in their fall section. They also have them in their Christmas section where their Christmas tree garland is. You can, I've seen that Dollar Tree has started carrying wooden beads now too. I have not seen them in mine. You may have to buy several strands though to be able to make a garland. So I'm just showing you how to make your own here. You just take some jute twine and a little bit of tape on the end of it, and that way it will stop the jute from fraying when you put it in. So this is the pattern that I decided to do. I did the big one in the middle, and then on either side of that I did the next size down, and then I did 10 of the smallest beads in between. And I'll put the measurements of the beads and a link to the beads that I used down in my description box. But I did buy these little burlap leaves at Hobby Lobby. They were $5.99 for a package and then 40% off. And you would really only need to use one package. You wouldn't need to do the plain burlap ones. I just had those as well, and so I thought I would add those in. And this is so simple, guys. So if you don't make your garland and you just buy one or have one, this will take you just a matter of like a couple of minutes, and it is so easy. So these leaves have a little bit of wire on the top of them. And so I just find not a neutral, but a space that I'm going to wrap the wire around just in between the bead so it kind of hooks onto the jute twine, and I do it on the same place of my pattern. So if you don't have a pattern of like larger and smaller beads to follow, you're just going to count in between, and like every 10th bead or every 5th bead, whatever your desired length is, you'll count that many beads and then place a leaf. So it is so simple, but honestly, this makes such an impact. So if you have like a mantle, I happen to have my beaded garland hanging over a big mirror in my family room. So when I put these leaves on there, it really does just add a really big pop of fall. But this is so simple and so easy that anybody can do this. And I just think that it's so cute, and it's something that you can switch up for different holidays. They're easily removed, and so you don't have to do a lot of change with your decoration to just add that little touch of fall. But look at how cute this looks all together. I think this is so darling. I love it.
If you guys are anything like me, when you see these packages of these 3 twine rolls at Dollar Tree, I seem to always pick them up or pick them up a couple at a time. I think they're found over close in the automotive section at my Dollar Tree, but anyhow, I have several packages of them. So I thought it would be fun to kind of take them and make a unique spin on a pumpkin here. So I just take 5 of the rolls. You'll have 6 in 2 packages, but you'll just leave 1 to use for crafting projects. I take 5 of them, and I'm just trying to see what I want to use for my pumpkin stem. I originally thought a spindle would be really cute, and if I had a thicker wood spindle, I think that's what I probably would use. Instead I end up using a little finial that works really cute. I'll show you what that looks like. But anyhow, be creative what you use for your stem. You could even use a stem off of another pumpkin you might have taken off for a different project. I take some thicker twine. I get this twine at Walmart. It's quite thick, not quite like rope, but thicker than just crafting twine, your normal crafting twine. I wrap it around about 3 times and then just tie it off in a little bow. If you don't want the bow, just tie it in a knot and cut off all of the little ends and everything, so that way you don't have the bow there. It would also be fun to embellish this in so many different ways. The creative possibilities are completely endless here with this project. So now I want this little stem here. This is just a finial. This is what I end up using. They come in a package of 3 or 4 of them at Hobby Lobby in their woodpile section. You could also use any type of finial that you could find. Again, be creative with this part. And I did stain it with some antiquing wax to kind of tone down that natural wood color. You could paint it green. You can really do whatever you would like to. This project is so versatile. Now I just had to stuff a little something down in the middle of the pumpkin there to have a surface to glue my finial to. So you could use, depending on how thick your item you're using for your stem is, you may not need to do that. But I just stuffed some, I think it was just like paper that I stuffed down there. I can't recall exactly, but I think it was just some of that paper that they wrap your stuff in at Dollar Tree. I just stuffed that down in there. You can't see it. If you were worried about it, you could definitely put some Spanish moss at the bottom of it to cover it, but you can't see it from the bottom. So just kind of use your best judgment with that. I then take some hot glue and put that down into the center, and I'm just going to hold that finial to make sure that it stands up straight. I just think this turns out so cute. It was so fun to come up with the different ways to embellish it and everything. So I just make sure that that stem is really good and dry there with that hot glue. And then I go around the edge because I want to add a little bit of Spanish moss. I think the Spanish moss adds a good texture to your DIYs. And I also think it looks so fun with the fall DIYs because it looks like the dried kind of vines and stuff from the pumpkin. And it also adds like a little softness around it, so it's not, you don't have such harsh edges. So I just gently place that all around, and then I take this lamb's ear that came from Dollar Tree, and I am just going to snip off a couple of leaves. So you can use whatever kind, if you have some different foliage that you want to use. We always have like leaves left over from different projects we do. I'm sure any crafter knows that. You maybe have a bag with a bunch of different things. Reach into that for this. Find some different things to stick on here. I really liked the look of the gray tones to the greenish gray tones of the lamb's ear with this. I thought it had a really good natural looking tone. I know that's not what pumpkin leaves look like, but again, pumpkins aren't made out of twine rolls either. So we're just using our imagination here. I'm just using some hot glue to stick that down in there. It slips in really easy in between those rolls of twine to get a nice look there. Now in my stash, I had this package of these little sunflowers. They're adorable and they would look so cute on this. And I kind of go back and forth trying to decide if I put them on the pumpkin, if I don't. You'll have to let me know. And I mean, you'll see me in a minute here, go back and forth on if I should put it on or not. I ultimately decide not to put it on, but look how cute. I mean, even now I'm looking at it going, it really does look so cute on there. So you can kind of see that you can embellish it any way that you decide. I have this pipberry here, and you can pick this up at Dollar Tree, Walmart, any craft store, Amazon. And I just decided to wrap it around my fingers. I love to give it kind of that corkscrew look. I love the fact that you're going to add a little, like another color on there. So this comes in white, it comes in orange, it comes in all different colors. And the white is just what I happen to have there. So whatever color you want to choose, it's going to bring a different element, a different texture to your piece. And I just love it. And I think it works really well when you're doing fall DIYs to have this, because when you curl it up in that corkscrew shape, it really does look like the pumpkin vines. And I think it's so fun. And it really does have a good place and a good purpose on it. So I just wrap it around that finial there, and you kind of can pull it. It's a wire, so you can stretch it and see how cute it would look even with that sunflower. I still am trying to decide, do I put it on? Don't I put it on? I really had a hard time deciding. Do you guys ever have a hard time deciding, is it going to be too much if I glue it? I don't want to glue it and then hate it. You'll have to let me know down in the comments if you ever struggle with that. But I do all the time. You can see I ultimately decide to leave it. I still think it turns out really, really cute, but you definitely can jazz this up as much as you want, leave it as simple as you want. I thought this way it matched any type of decor. It had a very neutral tone to it, so that way anybody could take this and put it right into their fall decor. But I love coming up with different items to make pumpkins out of that you don't ordinarily see, and I thought it was really fun to take these twine rolls and do a pumpkin out of those. What do you guys think of this one?
Most excited for you guys to see this one today. So you can see that I have drawn a triangle on a couple pieces of scrap wood that I have. I do 3 of them and cut them out with my table saw. And then I sand the edges to make them have a little bit of a rounded look to them and make the wood a lot more smooth. I am then taking, I believe this is a hazelnut color of the chalk paint, and I just water it down. This makes it just more of a stain to go on the wood. I want this to look like pie crust. We are going to make a slice of pumpkin pie out of these blocks of wood. They're kind of like triangle blocks, I guess. But I do take some pumpkin Waverly chalk paint, and I do add a little bit of the antiquing wax to it just to kind of give it a little bit of a darker tone so it's not so bright. And I do cover the next 2 triangles completely, all sides, front and back. I do take these little half beads. I have 5 of them, and I do just wipe what's left over of that hazelnut kind of stain that I've made out of the hazelnut chalk paint there, and I do wipe down each of those. I do glue each of my layers together here, so I just use wood glue and then a little bit of hot glue. And then my first layer goes on really well. So I lay that on, and then I do lay it on my table to push it down, make sure it's all level on that front layer that everybody's gonna see. On this next layer, it kind of doesn't adhere as well in the beginning. It kind of, I don't know if there's just some uneven spots or what it was, but when I go to push this down, it doesn't want to kind of push towards the other one, if that makes sense. You kind of can see there's a little bit of a gap there. So I do get out my wood clamps there and clamp it together. And then I do just take these little half beads and glue them on for a little bit of pie crust embellishment here. I just start with the middle one. I just use wood glue and kind of work my way out on those. I have this little burlap flower from the wedding section at Hobby Lobby, so I'm just going to glue that on, and as I do, I totally drop it. And it actually ends up being like a happy little accident because it kind of took off a little bit of the glue, so it was able to go on, and it did not like bunch all around or come seeping out or anything like that. I take just a little bit of burlap ribbon and kind of fold it over here, kind of roughly, if you will. I'm not really sure what technique you would call this, but I do just glue it onto the back. This just kind of helps give it a little bit of that pie crust look on the back. That little flower acts as the whipped cream on there. I just think this turned out so cute. I'm loving how this is coming along so far. This part would be completely optional, but I did use my Cricut and cut out the words fresh pumpkin pie, and I did just put that on each of the little layers there. I thought that that kind of turned out so cute, kind of a little take on the little books or crates that you see. I think this turned out so cute. I absolutely love this. Is one of my most favorite pieces I've made. This project can be completed with complete Dollar Tree items. So I have this little wood round that I got from the crafter square section, and then a wooden sign. And I'm just kind of eyeballing where I want my sign to end because I'm going to place that wood round on the top of it. And then I knew I wanted my next portion of the wood block to be just a teeny bit longer. So you can just kind of eyeball it. That's literally what I did. I didn't do any specific measurements. And then I just cut the 2 cuts on this. So I'm left with 3 pieces of this wood block sign, and I'll use 2 of them for this project, and I use 1 more for another project. And then, guys, look at what this is. It's a Jenga block, like one of the tumbling tower blocks that I found at Dollar Tree finally. If you're new to my channel, I have been looking for these in my Dollar Tree for over a year and haven't seen them. So I finally got some. I paint one of the pieces of the block white, one of them black, and then I also paint my little tumbling tower black as well. So I'm cutting off the little twine piece of this little wood round, and I use some plaster to fill in that little hole. However, I did not necessarily need to do that, and you'll see why in just a moment here. But the block, or the wood round rather, is going to be painted orange, and I do decide to go around the trim, the edge, and paint that with black. With my cutting machine, I did cut this cute little witch out, and with her little broom, I can place that right over that little hole where I used the plaster, so you can see why I didn't need to necessarily do that. And so I put her on the round, and then for my blocks, I cut out the words Hocus Pocus, and I alternated the colors depending on what color block they were going to be on. And so I just go ahead and adhere those to each of my blocks. If you know anything about me, you know that I cannot freehand anything. So I am totally embracing the cutting machine or rub-on transfers, things like that, water slide decal paper, anything to help me not have to freehand anything. So I just used some E6000 and some hot glue to affix those together. And then what I will do is I'm taking my tumbling tower block, as you can see here, and I'm going to put that onto my round first, and then glue the tumbling tower block with the round already on it onto the base of the other blocks there. And then I do take a Q-tip to go in and just kind of touch up the black paint around that edge where some of the orange was peeking through. To me, this completely screams Halloween. Not only is it one of my most favorite movies, I just love the colors of this, and I think it is so fun. It looks like a cute little snow globe sitting on the top of this. I absolutely love this one.
In the springtime, Dollar Tree had these darling little fence signs here. You can see I've taken the pail off of one of them, but I picked up 3 of them, and I've used one in a project that I just loved, and now it's time to try another one here. At first, I took this, this is just burnt umber acrylic paint to paint on this sign. Now, I'm not sure if I should have put a coat of Mod Podge down, if I should have sanded it, what I should have done to this. But as I was getting this far, and first of all, I was really disappointed with the coverage because I'm used to chalk paint being thick and having such good coverage. But as I was putting this paint on here, look what happens. It starts to come back up. Like every time I would swipe the brush, it would be bringing more paint back up, even though it was completely dry. And as much as I tried to save this, I had a technique I was wanting to try in mind. It just wasn't working. So I eventually gave up and I just went to use some black chalk paint, which worked out very well. I didn't have a problem with this pulling up any of that acrylic paint, and the coverage was beautiful. I just had to do 1 coat of black paint on this, and then I just used my heat tool to help that dry, just because I'm one of the most impatient crafters out there. But I do love my heat tool, I will say that. Now I'm using a crackle medium. I'll paste all the information about what type this is down in my description box. But I'm just going with a light coat all over this entire fence here because what this is going to do is I'm going to let it dry completely and then place another layer of paint on top of this, a contrasting color. So I end up doing white. And what's going to happen is that white paint dries, this crackle medium is going to allow that paint to do exactly what it sounds like. It's going to let it crackle and look like it has little cracks and chips in it, like it's aged naturally. So here I'm just taking this white paint and I'm putting this on here. You do want to work fairly quick, and you do not want to go back over an area that you have already painted because that will disturb that crackle medium and you will not get a good effect. So you can just kind of see how I'm doing this in just little areas that I'm working in. My paint was a little bit thicker, I think, and so I probably could have gotten a little bit better coverage if I had added a little bit of water to it, but it still works out in the end. So you can just kind of see I'm going over that last little bit, and then I kind of remember like, oh yeah, I'm not supposed to disturb these areas that already have paint. But look at how good this looks. What happens is it just starts to crackle like that and it just looks aged, and it's just a fun, different way to distress things. It's fun to play around with different colors too, because that background color will kind of seep through of whatever color you choose to do. Now I'm going to make a pocket sign out of this, and so I am just taking a little piece of fabric here, and I use this for one of my Easter projects, but I thought it's a really good color for a fall, this plaid, so I decided it would be really cute. And I just kind of used the sign as a template to cut it down to the size that I wanted for my pocket. And then I thought it would be really cute to just take all of these little threads off of the edges and fray the edges, so that way it has a little bit more of a rustic look. So that's something that's completely personal preference, but this plaid fabric here frayed perfectly, and I was able to get all of those edges looking very rustic. So you can see how easy it is just to pull those threads right out. I do complete this on all 4 sides, so that way every side will have that fraying on it. And then I'm just putting a little bead of hot glue along the base of this so I can get my base glued down first. In my mind, that was the simplest way to get this started. So I'm just putting that little line of hot glue, and I'm loving my cordless hot glue gun, you guys. So I had a few of you ask what I thought of it, and so far I really do like it. It is nice not being tethered down with cords. I'm still just getting used to getting it put back in and out of its little docking station. Sometimes I feel like that's a little challenging for me, but it just kind of is maybe not as a smooth transition as I want. Anyhow, back to what I'm talking about here. I am just taking this bead of glue and I put it up both of the sides. And then I left a little space at the top so I could fold this down. I thought that that would look really cute because once you stick some florals in there, I got thinking like, well, you're not really going to see that frayed part on the top. So I thought it would be fun to fold that down, and that way you will definitely still get that frayed edge. So I'm just taking the glue to do the rest all the way up to the top of the little piece of fabric there. And then this little sign came from Dollar Tree, and I thought this thankful sign was so pretty. I thought it would be so cute pasted, or not pasted, but glued on here. And so I'm just using some hot glue to put on this, and then I will just set that down. Now you could leave it as it was with the fabric and it would have looked just darling, but I love to kind of plus it and kind of add a little bit more embellishment, and I really thought this thankful sign was just so cute. So I thought it fit really perfectly. And not only that, but now I have that cute galvanized pumpkin for another project if I decide. So now I'm just taking some fall florals, and I'm just taking some little scraps that I have, like pieces that I have cut off that I haven't used in projects, to kind of complete this. And so, but I mean, I would think that just one sprig of florals from Dollar Tree fall would look just fine in there. Like, I thought just this right here looked absolutely darling. I do add quite a bit more to it, but I mean, this is simple, and I mean, it gets the message across, and I think you'd be fine just to stop right here. It just depends on how full you like to make things and what your style is. So I'm just taking, these are like some little wheat or millet type of florals there, and some little fern leaves, and I'm just tucking them in everywhere so I just get a little bit of a variation, and I just thought that looked really cute. Now, this is one of those projects that you could put out at the beginning of fall and leave all the way through Thanksgiving, and it would work totally perfect with your decor. Now, you could also not put so many, like that sign on the front, the thankful sign. You could have left it blank, and you could change the flowers out for a different season. So it's up to you what you decide to do, but I love how this turns out. This project was inspired by one that I found on Kirkland's website, and I think it turns out really cute for a lot less money. Now, you can use all Dollar Tree products if you would like to. I'm just showing you the Dollar Tree lamb's ear right there that would look so cute, but I did have a couple of these left over from a bundle that I bought at Walmart, and I do like the more gray green color that comes on those. Plus, I had enough of these to be able to make a little wreath, and so that's why I decided to go with these over Dollar Trees. But if I had had two of Dollar Trees, I probably would have used those, and so on and so on. But this is what I'm doing here. So all I'm doing is just bending these into like a circle here, and then I am just going to zip tie both of them together to create a little lamb's ear wreath. Now, you may already have, you can see the zip tie there, you may already have a lamb's ear wreath at your home that you could use, or you could pick one up at the craft store, but I did not have one, and I thought this would be a good economical way to make one. Now, these little windows that come from Dollar Tree, they're darling, but they have these little galvanized metal things on the bottom of them, and I didn't love it, so I was trying to remove it as best I could without damaging the window, and it really just doesn't look the greatest. So this whole time I'm sitting here trying to think of what I'm going to do to cover that area with. Now, you can just see once I have that little wreath made, I'm just going to use some zip ties to zip tie this through those little cutouts on the window there, and that's how I get that wreath to stay put. Now, you of course could use glue if you wanted to. I just picked these zip ties up at Dollar Tree. They're in like the automotive section, so check there if you're wanting to grab some, and they come in all different sizes and colors and things like that. And then I'm just taking a few little florals and some pumpkins, and I'm just going to glue them around the wreath. This is just going to give it that fall vibe that I'm going for. And then I have this nativity that I found this going through all of my stash here, and the little base piece of it that you would slide all of the little laser cut pieces into was the perfect size to go on the bottom of this window, and it covered up that little glued area that I kind of tore up when I removed it. Now here I'm just showing you that I did remove the zip ties from the back because I know someone will ask if I did. So I'm just showing you that I did. And then this is a stencil that also came from Dollar Tree this year. Their stencils for fall are darling, and they come with 2 stencils in a package. So make sure when you're looking at those, you flip it over and see that there's a design on the back as well. And this one just says, it says hello fall, but I don't have room for the hello. But the fall is absolutely darling because that A is a little maple leaf. And so I thought that would be super cute to put on this project. So I'm just doing some brown for the letters, the F and the 2 L's. And I'll go back in with some orange and do that on the cute little leaf there. And when I lift that up, you can see how cute that is. But it does look a little plain to me on the sides. So I just go in with a couple extra little leaves, and I do that on both ends. So you'll have to let me know what you think once I get done with that. But I think it looks really cute. Now what I do is I take my emery board. I love to use an emery board to do some filing, and I'm just filing the edges to give it a kind of rustic look. And I do go over the top of this. This is just a matter of personal preference. So if you're wanting to have a more worn look, like this has set out for a while or it is aged, this is something that you can do, is just lightly sand over the letters that you've painted on there with the stencil, and it will kind of fade them a little bit. But I think this window hanging is so cute. I love how this turns out, the little pumpkins and the little florals on there. The one at Kirkland's that I saw was like $70 or something, and I made this for less than $5, so I think it turned out pretty good. You're going to love how simple and how quick this project is, and the impact that it makes is absolutely stunning. I just have an average pumpkin. You can pick these up anywhere really, Walmart, Dollar Tree, any craft store, and the size you use is just depending on what you're looking for. I'm using also some preserved moss as well as some spray adhesive. The first thing I'm going to do is remove this stem. You may want to hang on to this because you can use this to put back on the pumpkin at the end. I have a little something different that I'm going to use with this one, so I'm still going to hang on to this stem because you never know when you're redoing pumpkin crafts if you need a cute pumpkin stem to stick on something. So I just have a little bag that I use that I keep all of those in. So now that I have that stem removed, I'm just going to open up this moss here. Now you can pick up like reindeer moss at Dollar Tree that you can use. That would work very well for a project like this. You may just want to snip it up and cut it into littler pieces to work with in segments. But this is just preserved moss. You can pick this up at any craft store or craft section at Walmart or anywhere like that. So I'm just, and you can see that there's some fun little items found in there. So I'm just going to take my pumpkin and working in sections, I'm just going to spray this adhesive. You want a pretty liberal amount because you just want to make sure that you're getting enough on there to hold this moss. And then just working in sections, you're just going to gently place this on there, and I hold it down a little bit just to make sure it gets like that tacky feel, like so it starts to hold, that glue starts to pick it up. This glue works really quickly. That's why you want to work in small sections, and I just want to make sure that I push firmly so it has a really good hold, so that way pieces are not falling off. And as you do this, you may want to wear gloves if you're worried about getting the adhesive on your fingers or your hands at all. I didn't have too much of a problem washing my hands, having it come off, but I did have quite a bit of the moss stick to my fingers with a little bit of glue that I would get that would seep through the moss. So just be aware of that as you're doing this. I love the idea of bringing the outdoors in and having this natural, organic look to a pumpkin. I've seen these in higher end stores and boutiques. They go for a lot of money, and this really, you can make this as inexpensive as you want depending on the size of pumpkin. You may even already have a pumpkin at your house that you could try this with. I did buy this at 50% off with Hobby Lobby in their fall sale, so I think it was just a few dollars that I paid. So not very much money to have a really nice high-end looking piece. Plus it probably took me about 20-25 minutes at the most, I think, from start to finish with this project, so it goes pretty quick too. As you can see, maybe underneath I'm working with like a cookie sheet that I have to kind of contain all of the moss, just to keep the mess to a minimum. So as you're doing this project, you may want to do something similar, so that way you're not sweeping up moss for days to come. When I feel like I have a section completely put together with the moss, I just turn the pumpkin a little bit to the side. I spray down the next section with a very liberal amount of that spray glue, and then just work in pieces putting that moss on. You can see how simple this really is. And then as I'm just showing you here that as you get to the end, you kind of just squeeze in the moss, just fit it into the little areas. I like the fact that this was a white pumpkin, so the contrast was really nice against that green, so I could see if there were any gaps or any areas that I missed. You would just go back if there was a spot that you're noticing that you missed and spray it with the adhesive pretty good, and then just stick some more moss on there, layering it on top of the other. I cover the entire pumpkin, including the top and the bottom. You could possibly leave a little bit of the bottom if you want this to sit very flat. I don't really have a problem with it not sitting flat, but that is an option if you kind of, depending on what your surface you're going to set this on, that you wouldn't have to do the very ring around the bottom there. You could leave that open, but I just went ahead and filled everything in completely. After you feel like you've got all of your pumpkin covered, do just spin it around, check for any holes or any areas there, and this is how it looks when I'm layering all of that on. Once I'm done, I spray the complete exterior of this pumpkin with the glue. This is going to hold the moss in place so you have minimal shedding from this pumpkin here. I've also heard of using hairspray to possibly do this, so keep that in mind. I did just, once I sprayed that glue, I rolled up all the little extra pieces of the moss that were there, and then I went ahead and sprayed it again just to make sure that I had another layer of glue on the outside to keep all of that moss on the pumpkin and not on my floor. Now I have this stick, I picked this up at my farm. I thought this would be a really fun type of stem for the pumpkin. Since it is styrofoam in the middle, it took just a little bit of finagling for me to get that stem in there and push it in really good. And then to kind of create a little bit more of a fun organic look around the stem so it didn't look so harsh moving from that grass to the stem, I used some Spanish moss around this. You could glue this down. It sticks very well. It adheres kind of to the texture of the moss. So as I put that in and got my stem all straightened up, I realized I probably didn't need to glue that down, but you definitely could. And I'm just spinning it around to make sure that everything looks really good. I'm really pleased with how this turned out. You'll have to let me know in the comments if you like seeing these different variations of pumpkins. I think it is so fun to come up with different textures and unconventional and unique ideas to bring different types of pumpkins into your decor. And I think this would be a great addition or element to your fall decor. What do you guys think of this one? I'm truly loving it.
I thought it would be fun to try my hand at making some custom candles from the Dollar Tree pillar candles. So I've just placed these in a pot of water and I will slowly bring up the temperature on these to melt this wax completely down. Now these do come with wicks in the middle so you can reuse those wicks. I'm doing something different. I'll show you in just a moment. But I've just placed out a lid from like a pan. I use it a lot in crafting to kind of contain my mess, especially when working with like my different like Spanish moss or reindeer moss. But I thought it would be perfect to line with some paper because inevitably I will spill some wax. Now here is the wicks that I'm using, or here are the wicks I'm using. These are just some wooden, it says they're crackling wicks. Honestly, you don't really hear much of a crackle, but I thought it would be fun to use these, a little more custom high-end look, something that's just a little different than reusing the wax or the wick from the Dollar Tree ones, but definitely, I mean, if you want to cut costs down, you can definitely reuse those wicks. I did put them in a little baggie, so I'll have them for another time if I need some wicks for another project. Now, these little jack-o'-lantern votives I picked up at Dollar Tree, and I just love them. I love them because you can turn them around and have them be like the plain pumpkin on the back side if you want to have more of the pumpkin side displayed, or you can have that cute little classic jack-o'-lantern face. Apparently, I'm really wanting to show you how these wicks work, and they are really quite nice. They have that little metal base that you can use. Now, I have not taken any wax out of these candles, and you saw how full they were before. So it melts down quite a bit. They must like whip the wax or something when they put on here, because even with the wax solidifying, it doesn't go that low. But anyhow, it takes 4 of these pillar candles to fill 3 of the Dollar Tree votives. I was just using my silicone dishwashing gloves there that have kind of like the bristly stuff on the inside of them. Just be very careful. You're working with hot wax. You can definitely burn yourself, but I would just pour the wax in there till I got it to my desired fill length. Now, these are some essential oils I picked up off of Amazon. There are so many different types to choose from. I will link them in the description box. You don't have to add a scent. I thought that was kind of a fun part. There was 4 scents that were really good in this, and 2 of them I did not like at all. So just keep that in mind when you're buying scents unsmelled. You may not like all of them. Now, once I get all of my scent added in and stirred around just with a bamboo skewer, I placed that little wooden wick down inside, and it was kind of a dome shape on the bottom of these, so the wick wasn't standing up quite so well. So I did just place some bamboo skewers to hold it into place until that wax hardened. Now you could cut your wick down beforehand, which would work if you're using scissors. I have these little like jewelry snippers that have a flat end. And so I'm just kind of snipping either side of the wick there. And then you'll see I just kind of bend it back and forth and it snips right off. And then I can go back in and kind of straighten up or trim any mess. But you can kind of see how that wick looks. And then here I'm just showing you where I went and kind of flattened it off there because when you break it off, it doesn't have quite the prettiest edge. So depending on what you're wanting to do, you may or may not need to do that. I think these are so fun to have those little cute faces there. I did 3 different fall scents in there. My daughters were already like, ooh, I want this one to burn first. They all have their favorite scents picked out. And honestly, they smelled so wonderful the day that I made these walking into my house. It just smelled just like fall. But you can see how beautiful and cute these are, just all lit up. I thought this was such an easy project. It took about an hour, a little over an hour for all of that wax to melt down. So it is kind of a little bit of like an afternoon project to do, but super fun. And I think these were so cute. They would make great gifts to do. But even if you didn't have these little pumpkin votives, I've seen people use like different mugs that they love. There's all sorts of different vessels that you could use to pour that wax into to use. But I just thought these were so cute and the fun different scents. But I'm already thinking other seasons. What could I do to make like Christmas gifts or different things? I think what a fun idea. Have you guys tried making candles? Did you have success with it? Do you have any tips you would like to share? Let me know down in the comments. I made a fatal error and did not film this before of this muffin tin, but it did come from Dollar Tree and you guys have all seen muffin tins before. So I just took it into my garage and I used this paint. It's like a satin amber and I really did like it. It turned out really good. It was a little bit more dull than a traditional pumpkin, which I liked. It's not so bright in your face orange. And after it dried, it took about 3 coats to get the coverage I wanted. I'm just taking just a little, this is one of the brushes from Dollar Tree, the stencil brushes, and I am just taking some white chalk paint that I watered down and I am just dipping it in that and I brush the excess off so I don't get huge drops, and then I'm just like flicking it with my finger to kind of give it that speckled look. I think that's kind of a fun, cute look. Now, of course, this is not food safe in any way, so don't think that it is, and I'll show you kind of how it won't get mixed up with your food safe ones. But again, I'm just going over the front and the back here just to kind of give it that coverage that I want. So I'm taking some ribbon and I am going to put ribbon through the little hole on the side, and I just bend my ribbon in half and then stick it from the front of the pan. You can kind of see, it's easier to see than explain this, down. So it makes a loop in the back, and then I will just feed that ribbon through the loop. I should have left it a little bit longer. It would have been easier, and then trimmed it down. But however you want to do that. But this way, in case you happen to have an orange pan that looks similar to this and you don't want to get mixed up with your food safe items or whatever, I mean, nobody's going to come and think, oh, there's ribbon on this, I can put it in the oven. So hopefully that helps. But I just thought it looked cute on here also. This would be really cute to sit out with some like little Halloween candy that's wrapped in it, like, some little Kit Kats or Reese's or something like that. I thought would be super cute kind of in this for like a little tray display. But it's just kind of fun. I have a couple of these that I use for different seasons to kind of in my China hutch just have as a little, it's a kitchen item, and it's just kind of fun to decorate it and have it look, kind of festive for the season. And then I'm just using my lighter tool here just to kind of sear the edge of those ribbons so that way they don't fray at all. And then you can see those little pumpkins sit really cute in it. I just think this turns out really cute. It's something that's kind of fun, and it just kind of adds that like festive flair to your kitchen for the holiday. And you can do this with any color of paint for any season. Have you seen these little votives at Dollar Tree? This particular one is a matte white, but it was a little bit dirty on the side. So I'm just going to freshen it up with a white color of paint here and go all over it. Now you could do this with any votive from Dollar Tree and paint it whatever color, orange, white, green, whatever color you were wanting to do. Now I'm just taking that little spot where your votive would go, and as you saw, I'm just filling it with some hot glue, and I'm going to put some Spanish moss all around just to kind of soften the top of that pumpkin I'm making it a pumpkin. It's a votive, but I'm making it a pumpkin, but I'm just kind of masking where that votive would go. Now I have this little stem from another pumpkin that I used for a different project that I didn't need the stem for, but you could easily use just like a stick from your yard would work totally fine. And I'm just using some hot glue to glue that. And that is it for this particular little pumpkin. And this is a hefty little pumpkin. Now I wanted a second little pumpkin to go along with this, so I'm taking this Dollar Tree pumpkin and I'm just removing the florals off of it. And I found this French newspaper printable online, and I'll link that below. And then I have this little kit that kind of ages things here, and I just found it at Joann's, but I've seen them at Hobby Lobby. It's not necessarily necessary to do this, but I wanted to age this, and I didn't have any like cream paper to print this newspaper on. I just printed this off just on my regular inkjet printer, and then I'm just going in with this little dabbing tool, as you can see here, and just dabbing it all over, and it's just a different, you can see how aged they all end up looking. It took me maybe 3 or 4 minutes per page to do, so it does take a little bit of time, but I was so pleased with how it turned out. So I want to decoupage this to the pumpkin, and I'm going for a French country flair, kind of French country farmhouse look. And so that's why I thought the French newspaper would be really cute. And I'm going to decoupage this to the pumpkin. So I'm just ripping it down into just there's no rhyme or reason to this. I'm just ripping wherever it feels good, whatever size, and I just do that I end up only using 2 of the pages, and then I still don't use all of the pieces there. But then I'm just going to do a typical decoupage process. This is just using Mod Podge, and it can be glossy, it can be matte, it can be satin, it can be whatever finish of Mod Podge. Any will work just fine. And as you can see, I just put the Mod Podge on the pumpkin, and then I just take the strips of paper, place them on, and then I'll go over the top of the strip of paper with some more Mod Podge to make sure that it is completely sealed and down. Now where the pumpkin has grooves, I take my brush and I'll just kind of dab down in those grooves as I'm putting the Mod Podge on the top and those papers on. So that way it keeps that shape of the pumpkin. And so just kind of do that if you're doing on a texture. You want those ridges to really show up. And I don't know if I show me doing that on here, but I'm just letting you know that I do that so that way those ridges show and it doesn't have any air pockets there. So you just kind of will tap down on those ridges. And this is such a fun and easy project. Honestly, my husband walked in while I was doing this and thought it was so silly. Like he was so confused at what I was doing. But when I showed him how it ended up turning out, he was like, wow, that's actually really cool. So it was a kind of a fun process. And this is just, again, no rhyme or reason to this. You're just covering up that blank space of the pumpkin with your paper. And you could do this with any type. It wouldn't have to be like this particular French newspaper. You could use tissue paper. You could print another design out. If you have like some wrapping paper or something, you want to use fabric. And then I'm just showing you could use just a stem off of another pumpkin, but I found this perfect little stick down on our farm. And so I grabbed it and I just stuck it all the way down through the styrofoam. And then I wanted to add a little curlicue here with this little pipberry. So I'm just wrapping this around. And then to get the curlicue on that, I just wrap it several times around a paintbrush or pencil or something. And that gives it that cute little curly look. And then just trim it down to size. I'm loving the look of the Spanish moss for this French country farmhouse look that I'm going for. And in all of the pictures that I looked up of different things, they all used this, or most of them used like the Spanish moss to kind of soften it. So I'm just gluing that around the top of the pumpkin, but underneath where I put that little pipberry. And I think this turns out so cute. I think these both together are adorable. They would look perfect on a tiered tray or to set in a little vignette like this. You could do one without the other very easily, but I just think these turn out adorable. This DIY is kind of like a 2 for DIY. So I wanted to kind of make a little collection here, and I'm trying to still perfect my decoupage technique. So I have this little charger that was from the fall section at Hobby Lobby, and these napkins are so stinking cute. They came from Dollar Tree, and what I'm going to try to do is decoupage, cut the napkin out onto the charger here to add a decorative plate to my china hutch. So I have a china hutch in my kitchen. I like to put fun little unique plates and stuff in for the different holidays. So this, of course, will not be food safe. So I want to mention that so that way we get that out of the way. But there's a couple layers of the napkins. So I'm just tearing this away, and it becomes a very, very thin layer that's left here. So you're just delicate. I mean, it doesn't look like I'm being super delicate, but you do want to make sure that you don't tear it. And then for this particular one, where the background is not the same color as the napkin, it's that galvanized metal, I want to cut as close to the design as I can. So this is a little bit It takes a little bit of time because you really want to be as careful as you can. Now, this was so thin that some of the leaves and little things, I did my best to get in between, but I was not super picky because I knew once I decoupaged it that a lot of that white color would kind of blend into the galvanized. You'll see how it looks when I'm done. But you do want to kind of take your time and get as much of that excess around the edge as you can. I put some Mod Podge down in the center of the charger here, and then I'm just taking a brush and I will just spread this all around the center. I don't go up onto the edge of the charger or anything. I did want to make sure that I used a brush for this just because I didn't trust myself with one of the foam sponge brushes. I felt like I wanted to be so delicate with the edges, and I don't know, for some reason it just didn't seem like I could be as delicate with a foam brush as I could with an actual brush. So after I spread the decoupage, not decoupage, that's the process we're doing is decoupaging. After I spread the Mod Podge out, I just lay down that little cute decal. So I did use my Mod Podge roller here, and I did quickly realize that I didn't want to do that with this napkin because it was not as delicate as I really needed to be. I did not want to tear it or anything. And so I just went ahead with my brush and I just kind of go around the edges and make sure that all of the edges are secured down with the Mod Podge. And then I take some Mod Podge and put in the center of my design there, and I just go all the way over, making sure that all of it is completely covered. This will just make sure that that design is adhered very well. And you can see how that little bit of between the leaves there, the little white from the napkin that obviously I couldn't cut in between all of those leaves, it does blend in extremely well to the galvanized. So this right here is just a platter that I had from Dollar Tree and some paper placemats that I got from Hobby Lobby. So what I'm going to do first is just spray paint my platter from Dollar Tree. And I'm just using some spray chalk paint. And do it in whatever color you would like. This is also going to go in my China hutch. It's just kind of a fun fall decorative platter. Again, not food safe, but definitely fun to put out to decorate with. You could easily put some napkins or some of your silverware or something on it. So I'm going to trace around the base onto my paper napkin to get the general shape. And then I'll just cut that out with my scissors. After you make sure that your little decal fits the exact way that you want it, you're just going to put some Mod Podge in here. So I just kind of put a bunch on there and go all the way around. This one I was fine using my foam brush with because it was not as delicate as that napkin. And then I do put a little bit of the Mod Podge on the back of the decal, the little paper placemat. And then you're just going to very carefully eyeball it, get it you do have a little bit of wiggle room with the Mod Podge. And I do get out my roller to kind of get out any bubbles or anything. And you'll see here that I end up lifting it up and then using that roller to go down. This worked extremely well for getting out the bubbles on that. So if you have one of the rollers, then try this method. I highly recommend one of these rollers. And again, I'll just link that down in my description box. So if you guys want to have a look at those, I absolutely love it. They do sell them at Hobby Lobby though. I've seen them there also. So I'm deciding that I want this particular platter to have the same texture all over, since, if you were to buy it as an actual platter that had a design on it, it would all have that glossy look. So I do go all the way over completely with Mod Podge, and my intent was to leave it like this, and so that's why I'm doing this step here. And then I actually decided, I guess right here what you're seeing me do is I decided to kind of antique the edges a little bit. Sometimes on a couple of plates that I have. It looks like they've kind of given it that farmhouse kind of style. So I thought that would kind of blend the white paint into the cream color on the napkin, not napkin, the paper placemat. Thank you. Okay. Anyway, and so I just kind of rub that antiquing wax in, and then I into the edges, and then I rub it off with a baby wipe. And then I'm just taking some of my plaster chalk paint and just kind of pushing that back in to kind of make it a little bit, that white pop through a little bit more. And then I go through and completely coat it with my clear coat spray paint. So I felt like that gave it the best shine to make it look completely like a platter that you actually bought, not like a paper placemat and a Dollar Tree platter. But let me know what you think of these. I love them. I think they're going to be so cute in my China hutch for fall time. I'm excited to have these in there. What do you guys think of these? Do you guys like decoupaging or not so much? For this DIY, there's a couple of different ways that you can make this. So you can make it with this little pumpkin that you see there. If you don't have a pumpkin, I have this little sheet from Dollar Tree to use. And then, of course, the back is just a wood canvas that I bought at Walmart. $6 or $7, I believe, was what it was. I'm just going to take some scrapbook paper, and I loved this color of plaid. I wanted a plaid for sure in the background. So I just had to, since it didn't fit quite, I kind of had to match it up as best I could. So you're just going to take the back out of this little wood canvas, and then I just measure my paper down to make sure that it fit. And then here I am just putting some good old school glue, the little school glue stick, I should say, onto the backing of my little wood canvas. And then I will just use my Mod Podge roller to make sure that this adheres extremely well to that. And this will become the back of our canvas there. So you can see how that looks there. I guess this is kind of like a reverse canvas. So what I'm going to do is take this little sign from Dollar Tree and remove the center stuff. And then I just cut some scrapbook paper down to size to fit inside of it. Just got some coordinating paper to fit. And you can see that you could use one of those little pumpkins from Hobby Lobby or something. Anything you have would be fine. But what I'm going to do is trace this on the back of this little, this is like a tile, like a plastic tile from Dollar Tree. Kind of looks like that, like faux tin. And so I'm just going to cut my shape of the pumpkin out. This stuff is like very thin plastic. It cuts extremely easy. And then I cover it with some plaster chalk paint. And then I go in with my metallic silver. And I go over all of the raised areas. This is just going to make this look like distressed tin. So here's just an up-close look at what this looks like once you've kind of distressed it and added that little silver bit on there. So I'm just making a little mark on my canvas there of where to glue my second sign onto. The plaid lines really help because you have kind of like straight lines to go off of. So I'm just putting some hot glue on the back of this and then measuring that up there. I just love how these two papers look together. I think they are so cute. This is just the original riser that came on that sign, so I glue that down, and then I'm just going to glue the pumpkin. I will warn you that this is plastic, so it will start to melt the pumpkin if you push too hard. So maybe super glue might work a little bit better, or if you use hot glue, just don't push very firmly on it. And then I take a jumbo popsicle stick here, or craft stick, and cut it to the same size as the pumpkin. And then I just weather it up with some antiquing wax here. So I just use a baby wipe to wipe that on. And then I'm doing a water slide decal on here. These are so amazing. I recently discovered these. I'll leave some more information about them in my description box if you'd like to know. But it says, meet me at the pumpkin patch. I thought that was so cute. So I just made another little riser out of a part of an old craft stick or paint stick and glued that on. And then I will use that to glue my cute little sign onto the front of the pumpkin. This particular DIY completely blew all of my expectations out of the water. I kind of had a vision for it, and as it came together, I loved it more and more. You'll have to let me know what you guys think of this one. Personally, I think it turned out so classy, and I absolutely love it. This is kind of a fun little hack. Dollar Tree has all sorts of different charger plates here. These are, of course, not food safe. You're just using them to place other plates on if you do like a fancy table setting or something, and they're fun to use in your china hutch. But I am just going to use this to make a little decorative plate out of. So I found these cute little pie pieces at Dollar Tree. They're just kind of like, I'm not really sure what you're supposed to do with them. They have this little tag to hang them on something, so maybe just to hang off of a cute little knob or something like that. But I'm taking this little slice of pie here, and I thought it would be really cute. Now, I have never seen these gold chargers at Dollar Tree before, so I don't know if this is something new or I've just missed them before, but I thought that was a really cute color for fall. And I'm just using some hot glue on the back of that little pumpkin pie piece, and this will be so cute to use as a decorative piece in your china hutch or just on a little plate rack or something. And it is so simple and takes like no time at all. Sure, you've seen these little pumpkins from Dollar Tree or seen some other YouTubers do some different things with them, but hopefully I'm taking a little bit of a different take on them. So I am going to use my table saw to cut these down. So I just kind of measure them each and cut a little bit off of two of them to kind of stagger their sizes. So you can see how I did that here. For some reason, I guess I didn't hit record, but you can kind of see where I cut those off at. And I am just going to go ahead and go back in and make those little corners match, so that way they are all cohesive there. So you can see here that I just very safely make sure that you're wearing your safety glasses and everything, and I'm cutting those at that angle so that way they match. It takes me just a minute to figure out how to do those angles there. So but just make sure you can see that you get them all cut there, and I'm going to kind of, there we go, draw my line so I can get that, and just make sure that they all get cut with that little bit of an edge to make them all match one another. I'm also taking some rustic barnwood that I have from a barn that we tore down at our farm, and I'm just going to cut these the same way. I kind of stagger their sizes in with these, but make sure they have that little cornered edge there that I'm cutting the angle, so that way they'll fit right in with these Dollar Tree pumpkins. So you can see here what I'm going to do is take off the little bit of raffia bow that's on there, and I do kind of, you saw me sand a little bit to get that glitter off. Now I'm going to paint these to match the colors that I'm using for fall, which is, I'm trying to think of what the colors are here. There's pumpkin from Waverly Chalk Paint, moss from Waverly Chalk Paint, and then the plaster color from Waverly also. So I paint the three pumpkins from Dollar Tree, and then I will just leave the barnwood as the natural wood color. I do take a little bit of the antique wax and go over the stem on those Dollar Tree pumpkins to make sure that they have darkens it a little bit, because that wasn't quite the color I wanted. So I do take what's left in my brush from that plaster chalk paint, and I kind of do just lightly brush over these to give them a little bit of an aged look there. I take some square little cube blocks that I got in a package at Dollar Tree to put as the stems on these pumpkins. I thought that was kind of a fun contrast to the other stems that were there, and since those are the natural wood color, I left these the natural wood color. So I do just kind of organize these, kind of stagger them, figure out exactly how I want them to be before I connect them, glue them all to one another, which I guess is connecting, so I'm not wrong there. And then I'm just using a little bit of hot glue there and gluing those two, you can see side by side. And then I will glue those onto this one in the back. So I just go in with my glue, and I do just use hot glue for all of this. And then I just make sure you can kind of see that. There we go. Then I just place this next one here in front, and I get that kind of positioned how I want it. And I'm just kind of eyeballing. There's no method to my madness. Just what looks good to my eye is what I go with there, and connect those all together. Now I did really like the little raffia bow that was on those pumpkins, but I kind of wanted to make my own. So I had a little control over how big or little I wanted it. So I thought it would be fun to just go back in, and on those Dollar Tree pumpkins, just put a little bit of a raffia bow on each of those. And then I just leave my barnwood pumpkins plain. Now, I probably should have done this before I glued them all together, but I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to distress the Dollar Tree pumpkins, but after getting them here, looking at them with the barnwood, I definitely wanted that. So I do just go in right now with a little bit of antiquing wax and go around the edges. You can easily sand to distress or not distress at all. It's really up to you. I'm just kind of hopefully giving you some type of inspiration here. I got the cutest little set of wooden leaves at Hobby Lobby. It came with a bunch of different sizes and colors. I thought they were so cute. So I am just using a little bit of super glue on the back of these, and I only glue them onto the white pumpkin just to give a little bit of embellishment, add a little extra color in there. I thought these just were so cute. What do you guys think of these? I think these are so cute for a tiered tray or even just to have sitting out on a shelf. This little project is so cute and so fun, and I believe all of the items come from Dollar Tree. So I take this cute little pencil holder and I am giving it a really good coat of the antiquing wax. You can see that it wasn't going so well, so I finally decided to get serious and put quite a bit onto, I'm just using a baby wipe, and I put quite a bit on there to go over all sides and the edges. I love topiaries, and I'm making a cute little topiary with pumpkins. I think that is so fun, so farmhouse. So I don't know, do you guys like topiaries? Every chance I get that I can use them in my decorating, I'm loving. So again, I just go all over the edges and the side of this cute little pencil holder. I do take this little flower pick. Sorry, that took me a minute to come up with. This flower pick from Dollar Tree. I'm using it for the leaves, so you could use pretty much any type of floral pick that you have from Dollar Tree or Walmart or anywhere. And I'm just using a couple of leaves between each layer of the pumpkins. And some of these pumpkins came from like the little packages that you can find at Dollar Tree. Some of them were on like another floral pick that I had. And I'm just gluing a couple of leaves between each layer. Now you can kind of see what I did here with the leaves on that second layer. I wish I had offset them from the bottom layer a little bit more. It kind of bothers me a little bit now. I mean, it's okay, but if you want, maybe offset them a little bit. That way, as you put this at different angles, it kind of looks good from all different angles, if that makes sense. But I am taking leaves from the same floral pick, and I am just gluing them around the pencil holder. This is just going to give like a nice little bed of leaves there for our pumpkin topiary to rest on. And just hot glue, and then I'm just using my little spatula there to push down and make sure that those have a good firm hold. And then of course I'm just going to put a lot of hot glue around the bottom pumpkin, and I'll just set this right on top of that bed of leaves there. You could stop right here and it would be absolutely darling, but I do have one of these farmhouse calendars from Dollar Tree. So on the back side, I do just cut out this little sign that says fresh pumpkins, and I am going to use some glue stick and just glue this to the front of our cute little, what was a pencil holder, but has now become a planter, and just glue that onto the front of that. Look how cute that looks. You could do any type of rub-on transfer. You could do any type of sticker or anything from your Cricut. Again, you could just leave it plain and it would be just fine. I do cover it with a little bit of decoupage to make sure that all of the edges are down good. It does seal that. And I think this is such a cute little decoration to have for fall time. This will take you all the way from the beginning of fall all the way through Thanksgiving. I think this is so fun. It's just like the perfect little piece to tuck into a little corner. What do you guys think of this one? Are you a topiary fan like I am? When I saw these little pumpkin treat buckets at Dollar Tree, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with them. I thought they were so cute. And you could hang them backwards if you just wanted the pumpkin to show. If you like that cute little classic jack-o'-lantern face, it's just such a fun way to bring a definite fall feel into your home. Now, this is just a beaded garland that I have, that I use against a giant mirror that I have in my living room. I don't have a fireplace or a mantle, but I think this would be so cute along there as well. But I do a lot of different things to this beaded garland to kind of dress it up for different holidays. And so I thought this would be such a fun thing if you have a garland like this. If you don't, they do sell them. I mean, at the craft stores, Walmart, you can pick them up for very inexpensive. I mean, I think around $6 at Hobby Lobby when you buy it on sale. So this is just some little baby clothespins that I have here that I'm using to put through the twine that's on here. And I'm just hooking it through the twine and then onto that little handle of that little bucket. Such a fun and easy, quick hack to do. I'll just go through the rest of the garland and continue hooking these little buckets on. Once I get all of my little buckets attached, I just lift it up to make sure I have my spacing done really well. I wish there was 5, so it had an odd number, but there was only 4 in the package. So just take that as if you have a longer garland, you may want to pick a second package of these up. Now I wanted to cutesy it up a little bit more. The buckets are really cute just hanging there, but on those little clothespins, I thought it would be really cute to have this little black ribbon with this little white trim. This did come from just the fabric section at Hobby Lobby, and I thought it would just be so cute with these little teeny bows, because we all know that I love bows tied on there. So it's up to you if you want to dress this up or jazz it up a little bit more. But I just do 4 of those little bows, and I'm just getting them all to the exact same size so it looks very cohesive. It just takes a little bead of hot glue on each of these little clothespins, and then I will just place my little bow on there. I really do think that this adds just such a good finishing touch on here and just makes it look very cutesy and high-end. I just love the way it looks. I feel like this was really what sets it off. I love the blacks and orange. Even if you're not like a Halloween fan, I still feel like blacks and oranges in fall just bring that feel of October into your home. And so I really do just love that. But I'm just going to continue on gluing all of my little bows on. It's really hard for me to film this and show you how it looks on my mirror just because of reflections and cameras and lighting and all sorts of other things, but I just thought I would put it here on this display to show you how cute this turns out. Do you guys like the bows on there? You could even fill these little buckets with something to have that be a little bit of an addition that you add. I just think these turn out so cute. And again, something easy that you could use for different types of seasons. If you have a garland that you like to kind of keep basic and add a few little different touches to it for different seasons. What do you guys think of these little trick-or-treat buckets? I'm going to take this pizza pan from Dollar Tree and we're going to make a sign out of it. On the bottom layer, I put a layer of Mod Podge. My thinking with this is since I am putting a decal on it, I did not want my paint to come up when I lifted that transfer paper off. So I thought that maybe the Mod Podge on the bottom would help it to adhere better, the paint. So I'm not sure whether my paint didn't have that problem when I did pull my transfer tape up. So I'm not sure if that was the reason or what, but that's what I did. So I'm just letting you know. I do put 3 coats of paint on this, and I do let it dry thoroughly in between each coat of paint. And then as my last top coat, I use this satin Mod Podge here, and I just put this all over the top of it to seal in the paint. And then I actually did let this dry overnight because I really did not want any of the paint to come up. All right, so what I do is a trick that if your mat for your cutting machine ever loses its stick, I just put a little bit of painter's tape on the corners of my paper, and I have not had any problem with them slipping since I started doing this. So that's just a little tip for you there if you have a cutting machine and use it. If you don't have a cutting machine, what you'll want to do is just find an image online that you can print out, and you'll just use a decoupage method to decoupage your design into the middle of the pizza pan that I'm using. So I'm just going to weed my design out. I'll put a link to this design. I got it off Etsy and I absolutely loved the simplicity of it. I love to add a little bit of pop of orange into my fall decor because I really just love how the orange color pops. But I'm kind of loving having just a few pops of orange and then some neutrals with it. And I think this sign does a perfect job with that. So I'm just going to show you here that as I weed this, that sometimes the image is too big to weed, that I just cut it off in sections as I pull it up. And that's something that's totally fine to do. It makes it a little bit easier to work with, because the worst thing is when your little portion that you're working with sticks back down and then starts to pull up the letters or something. So just know that that's, if you already know that hack and you do that, that's great. If you don't, then that is something that is so much easier to cut it off in little sections like that. After you get the main portion of your decal off of there, you have to go back in and weed out all of the letters. So that's what I'm doing here. And then I will get some transfer tape and I will take it to put onto my pizza pan. So I do my best to center this. Transfer tape and me sometimes have a love-hate relationship. Sometimes I absolutely love it, and then the next time I go to use it, like it sticks and it's not the best. It actually worked out very well for me today. So I just place this down and then I do measure it with my ruler to make sure that I'm getting it as centered as possible. If you know me at all or you've watched me, you know that I am not a measurer. So this is very rare that I pull my ruler out and do check, but I did want to get this as centered as possible. Once I am certain with where I want it, I do just use my little hotel key to scrape, because I can't find my Cricut scraper anywhere. And then I just peel back the transfer tape, leaving the design on there. And if you have a little spot or something that wants to come up with you, you just kind of go hold it down and peel it back and it works just fine. But I love this design. I think this is going to be so cute. And I don't know whether I'm going to put this in my China hutch or put it in my living room or somewhere. I just think this turned out so cute and it was so easy. I love these cute little doorknob hangers, I think is what they are. This little beaded garland here with this cute little leaf. But I never can find my letter for my last name, so I thought I would just give this a makeover and make it pretty neutral for fall. That way it doesn't have to have an emblem or a letter or anything on there. So I'm just going to take this, and since that letter is kind of burnt into there, I decided to kind of cover it with some spackling. If you're going to put some paper over the top of this or anything, you wouldn't have to do that because it would totally cover it. But I was just going to paint mine, so I wanted to give it a smoother texture. It does have a little bit of more like a leaf texture. Like I didn't completely sand it totally smooth. So you can see a little bit of texture on there just to kind of give it a little bit of visual interest. And then I'm just painting the entire thing a white or neutral color. It might also be fun to stain the beads to add a little bit more of a fall color tone if you want, but I did find these rub-on transfers at Dollar Tree, and I love the different color of pumpkins, and I thought it would be really fun to kind of put these on here. I'm just trying to find my placement exactly where I want it, if I want it at an angle, so forth. And eventually I decided on just cutting out the specific pumpkins on the design that I wanted. This way I wouldn't lose any of the pumpkins, so I could use it for more transfers in the future, and I could just specifically decide where I wanted the placement, how full I wanted this to be. Now I'm just using one of the craft sticks or popsicle sticks to rub this on here. These from Dollar Tree for the most part work so well. I've only had one or two that have been really difficult to work with, and they're like the gold foiled one. So these are very easy. You just want to make sure that you're using enough pressure there. Gently lift it up, and you can see eventually that that design comes right off and transfers right onto your surface. They're so fun to work with. I hope that Dollar Tree keeps bringing these out with different designs for different seasons because I love to work with them, and I think they really elevate a project kind of to the next level. So I'm just going to repeat this process with all of these transfers, just deciding where on my leaf I want to place them, and then just rub it with the craft stick till it's completely transferred. I also pay attention to the edge, so that way if some of them kind of go off of the edge so it looks like it's a seamless design, I just make sure to pay attention to that as well. I do seal in the rub-on transfer with some Mod Podge. I use just a matte type of Mod Podge. That's just going to help that design not scratch off. It just protects it. And then I love to distress things, so I do highlight the edge here with a little bit of antiquing wax. This just kind of adds that little bit of distressing. Even if you don't do it as heavy as I do recommend doing something to the edge, whether it's sanding or running your finger with a little bit of antiquing wax on it around the edge. That's just going to give you a defined look. It helps it look a little bit more high end, like it's not just like a homemade project, but kind of takes it and looks a little bit more professional. I also just go over the beads with a little bit of that antiquing wax just to kind of rough those up a little bit as well. This is a super simple DIY that anybody can do. It's a great beginner project, something great to work with kids or grandkids. How cute would it be to do one for each of their doors to hang off of? I love to hang them in my kitchen off of jars like this, or even my little tea towel ladder, or even like a china hutch. It's just kind of a fun way to bring that little extra touch of fall into your decor. What do you guys think of this one? With this DIY, I'm just taking this little cutting board from Dollar Tree and I'm going to turn it into a pumpkin. So I'm just painting it orange. I'm just using some pumpkin orange color chalk paint, and I'm just going to do front and back, all the sides, everything. Now, if you want to do a variation of a different color of a pumpkin or something, feel free to do that. But I really just kind of wanted to make this one orange. And then I'm just taking one of these paint stir sticks. I buy these in a package of, there's several of them for like $1 or $1.50 or something. And I just cut one down to about 4 inches, and I'm painting that green for the stem. Now, this stencil came from Hobby Lobby. I've actually been really impressed with their stencil section lately. They've kind of upped their game. They've gotten some really cute, fun stencils. But I thought this kind of had like a fun little French country feel to it, little fleur-de-lis type thing. So I'm just taping that on, and I'm just wanting this to go along the bottom of the pumpkin to kind of give it that little bit of a French country flair. When I stencil, I like to use painter's tape to hold that stencil in place, and then I just lightly tap up and down, and as you can see here, with just a small amount of paint on your brush. You don't want so much that when you stipple it down that it's going to like smudge paint underneath the stencil. So you want it to be a very light process, and if you have to go over it a couple of times, do that. And then once I'm done, I just peel it back, and I'm so happy with how it turned out. I thought this looked super cute. So I'm just kind of checking where I want the stem, and I'll just use some hot glue to fix that stem on there, and then I just kind of push that down and get that put into place, and it's starting to look like a pumpkin, I think. And now I'm going to put a little bit of embellishment on it because I love to do that. So I'm just gluing some Spanish moss to the top here, and I'll swing that all the way around to the back of that stem, and I'll glue it down there so it's all in place and it goes all the way around the stem. And then I just add a couple extra little things that I've got here for embellishment. These are little sprigs off of a boxwood pick that I bought from I didn't get it at Hobby Lobby. I got it at Walmart. Their boxwood picks are the best, and they're like $1.97, and you can do so many projects out of just one of them. So I'm just gluing those on. I'm just putting this one down because I wanted it to kind of go over the corner of the pumpkin there, and so I'll do that. Now I'm just taking some twine, and I wrap that around my finger several times and tie it in the middle to make a cute little twine bow. I thought that was cute to have a thicker twine bow like this. And then I felt like it needed maybe even something a little extra. So I have this little white pitberry that I have. You can get this Dollar Tree, any craft store really. And I'm just going to wrap it around the stem and kind of twist it so it stays on there. And then using just like a paintbrush, I'm just going to wrap each side around that to kind of make the curly cute little vines of a pumpkin there. And I realized that I had done them kind of long, and so I just trimmed them off to what size I want them to be. And then with the little pieces that I ended up trimming off, I end up just gluing into the top there, so there's a couple of extra little pumpkin vines coming out all around. I just liked the contrast of the white pitberry on this, and I just thought it looked really cute kind of all over the stem there, and that it just kind of was the little touch that it needed. I think this turns out beautifully. I love this. You could do this with any sign that you have or plank wood or anything. Nobody would know that this was a cutting board. And I really think that it has such a French country feel to it, and I just love it. Hiding in my stash, I found this Easter tag sign from Dollar Tree. I'm just going to take my emery board and file off as much glitter as I can. I then will take some of this brown craft paper and I will cut it to size, and then in order to make this fit the best that I can, I'm just going to lay it on my sign, and I will run my finger over the edge of the sign to indent that shape of the sign into the paper, so when I go cut it with my scissors, I can get the closest shape that I can. To adhere this to the sign, I'm going to use just some trusty old glue stick and some hot glue. I'm going to do this for a couple of reasons. First and foremost is there is a lot of glitter that is on this sign, and this will contain any that is left. We all know how much Dollar Tree loves their glitter. I swear they must own stock in a glitter company or something because they use a lot of glitter. So it will contain that. And the next is it's just obviously going to cover the design that is there up. It takes less paint and it is going to make it look a little bit more high end, kind of take it to the next level. So I just put my hot glue around the edge, and then once I place that craft paper down, I use my Mod Podge roller to flatten that out a little bit. And that just really helps adhere that. Then I'll just take my emery board and in a downward motion, I will just file off the edges of that craft paper, and that's going to give it that very crisp look. On the top and the bottom of the sign, I am going to put this cute little pumpkin craft paper that I did get from Hobby Lobby, and I'm using my ruler to get as straight of line as I can, and then to keep that straight line, I will just use the edge of the paper. You can kind of see how I'm doing that there. And then the same thing, I will just rub my finger over the edge of the sign to indent that, and I will go in with my scissors and cut it as close as I can. And then same thing on this paper to get that crisp edge. I just use my emery board. You can use a finger sander, sandpaper, anything that you like that works, and just do it in a downward motion softly, and that will just give you that crisp, clean edge. And then I will do the same thing on the bottom of this to add that same craft paper. So again, I just line my little paint stir stick there up on the edge of my tag sign, and then kind of eyeball where I want my paper to go up to. And then I will use the other straight edge of this paper to use as my top line. That will give it that crisp, clean, straight edge on the top there. You can see how I do that. And then of course, the same motions here. Put your finger or to indent the sign, and then actually I guess this one I don't really need to do that because you can just cut it since it's straight as close to the edge, and then you'll just sand off the edges of the paper like this. So I did use my Cricut cutting machine. You can use any type of rub-on transfers or stickers. If you are at all familiar with my channel, you know that I absolutely cannot freehand things no matter how hard I try. It is very frustrating to me. And as much as I would love to perfect that, I just don't have the patience to do it. So I did use this little design that was in Cricut Design Space to cut these words out. So, and if you guys have been here for a little while, you know that I have lost my Cricut scraping tool, and I found it. So I'm so excited that that is back in my life, and I can stop using my hotel key momentarily until I lose it again, I'm sure. So I'm just going to push this down onto my sign here. Farm Fresh Pumpkin Patch. I just love the font that was on that. And then it also had this little You Pick sign that I'm going to put down there on the bottom. And as you can see in the upper left-hand corner, I have this darling little truck that I got from Hobby Lobby. I think it was like $2.99, and then of course they're 40% off. I'm just going to glue this on there. It will give it that cute little three-dimensional look, and I'm just using hot glue for this. And I thought this was the perfect way to use this little truck. It would also be super cute on like a tiered tray or something, but I just love this little sign that I'm making. And I'm just using my little weeding tool. You could use whatever to stick through where that hole is up at the top of your tag sign, because I'm going to use some rope to stick through here so that way we can hang our tag. So any kind of twine or string or whatever you have that you want to use to do this with will work. I just unraveled some Dollar Tree rope and tied a knot into the end of one of the little strands, and then I just stuck it through as you saw there. And then on the knot portion, I just put a little bit of hot glue under that. That's going to make that knot so it doesn't slip up at all. You never see it, and it'll stay secure. And then just do some Mod Podge. You probably maybe want to do that before you glue your truck on, but I kind of forgot. But what do you guys think of this? I'm just smitten with this. I think it's absolutely darling. This is such a fun little DIY. I'm just taking one of these jack-o'-lantern trick-or-treat buckets. You can find these a lot of times at thrift stores. This time of year in the fall time, you can start to see them in the grocery stores. Sometimes you'll see like really obnoxious like pink and green ones. So what I'm going to do, we're going to paint this completely over. So I'm taking a little bit of spackling and putting it over the jack-o'-lantern's face. And as I'm putting it over the eyes, nose, and mouth, I realized I probably should do the whole side of the pumpkin. That way it will kind of mask the facial features a little bit better, because I want this to look like a plain pumpkin. If I had this to do over, I would probably spackle the entire pumpkin to give it a cohesive look. Since this is going to be a centerpiece and the other side of the table will see the back side of this, or this side of it, I should say, it just kind of looks like it's a normal textured pumpkin, if that makes sense. However, the front is very smooth. So if I did it over again, I would cover the whole thing completely in spackle. But I'm just going to go through and make sure those lines are still there. You can see I'm just tracing those lines in. And then I do just smooth it out with my finger just to make sure that there's no rough edges or anything like that from the spackling. And I do, once it's completely dry, I take just some sandpaper. I use an emery board for a lot of things. If you're new here, that's kind of just what I happen to have at my craft table, so I use it a lot. But I just go through and sand, make it a little bit more smooth. And then if there's any harsh edges, I just sand those off to make those a little bit more even. That way it kind of flows into the other texture. So if you did your whole pumpkin in the spackling, you probably would still want to sand it just to smooth it out, but you probably wouldn't need to spend a whole lot of time, because the outside of, a natural pumpkin's texture has a lot of those bumps and everything on there. So I take this out to my little spray painting studio, which is just a box in my garage, but I use Krylon, just satin finish white, and I'm just going to spray this all over. You could do whatever color you wanted your pumpkin to be. You do need to do a couple of coats of this to make sure to cover the orange. I do even go and spray a little bit inside just to kind of mask a little bit of the orange on the inside, so that way it helps to kind of dull down that orange color showing through on the exterior, but you don't need to pay a lot of attention to the inside. But I do just go all the way around, and since this is plastic, you do want to let this cure and dry completely between each coat that you do. So do a light coat in the beginning to cover it all, let that dry for a few hours, come back out, do another couple of coats. I think I went over this 3 times once it was all said and done, to make sure that it was completely all the way covered in spray paint. So you can see how smooth this side of it looks, and as you turn it around, you still can kind of see the face in there. I probably could have put a little bit more spackle to mask that, but I mean, it doesn't look horrible, the texture on there, but the whole pumpkin I think would have looked a little bit better all covered in it. I have this base that I bought at Hobby Lobby. It was 75% off, so I think I paid like $5 for it. And you can see this just sits perfect right in there, and I'm just going to put some flowers in here for a centerpiece. Here's a quick look at what this looks like on my table that I decorated for fall. I do have a video for this whole table setting and a few DIYs that go along with that. I'll link that down below, but I think this turned out absolutely beautiful.
This is another really quick and easy project here. I have a bunch of these cutting boards. You can see this is from spring of 2022. I bought a bunch of these when they went like 75% off. And I am just going to do a quick little redo of this little charcuterie board mini one. There's a company called Essential Stencils, and they have been kind enough to send these decals to me. I also have a video coming out that will show some of their stencils in there, but these decals were absolutely beautiful, and I love how they work. I've really only worked with Dollar Tree stencils, and man, there is a big difference when you have a step up in a stencil for how well they transfer. It came with that nifty little scraper tool there that I could use. If you feel like you're missing an area, you just push that paper back down, or the carrier paper, and just kind of put a little more pressure and it will come right off of there. But I thought this sunflower was so beautiful, and then I have these cute little beads that I put on here also. I think they turned out so cute. Now, just to seal all of this in so you're not going to have anything rubbing this design off, I'm just going to put some matte Mod Podge on here and just cover it. I leave the back side of this completely natural in case for some reason if I gave this as a gift or sold this, I would want somebody to possibly be able to use the one side of it if they would want. But you could also get like a 2 for DIY out of it. You could do one stencil on this side for one season, flip it over and do another stencil for another season. I think on a cute little shelf in your kitchen or even as a coaster for a cup, these are so perfect for just a cute little decor touch. And you can just see I just go over with that Mod Podge there. I don't really even care that it gets a little bit on the jute twine because you won't even notice there. But just a light coat and you go over the entire surface so you have the same sheen all over your project there. Isn't this just the cutest? I love this beautiful design on here. I'm so excited to work with more of their transfers. I was so very impressed and I just think this turned out beautiful. If you were giving this as a gift, who would you give this to? I'm just curious. Let me know down in the comments. This is one of those projects that I really didn't know the direction it was going to take. I just kind of went with it as I was going along. But I did want to use one of these little grapevine wreaths. Now this is a 2-pack and you can use any size, but you can also see down there I have some different, like that little snake from Dollar Tree would be really cute to do this with if you don't happen to have one of these grapevine wreaths. Now I was very carefully taking off the extra grapevine they used to wrap these together so I can use them in another project or use them like as pumpkin vines or something. I just thought that they were really cute. And I always just hang on to stuff like that in a little bag that I can always use for different embellishments. Now I took this pressed tin, it's faux pressed tin from Dollar Tree, and I love this stuff. And I just kind of cut it into the same shape as the wreath there because I'm going to be gluing the wreath on the top of it. I'm going to make a cute little pumpkin out of this. And so I just wanted to make sure that you couldn't see that from behind around the edge, just only in the center of the wreath. Now I'm going to paint this with some pumpkin Waverly chalk paint. I takes like 2 or 3 coats. I believe I did 3 on here, and I did a coat or 2 on the back. Just if you were to see it from the back, you would see the orange color rather than the stark white. So that's up to you if you paint the back of your projects. It's kind of a matter of personal preference, or if you're going to sell them, it always makes them look a little bit more high-end. So I'm just showing you here because every once in a while you have someone say, you never paint the back of your projects. I'm just showing you that sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but today I did. So now I'm taking some white paint on one of these little chip brushes from Dollar Tree from their craft section. And I'm very lightly, so I wiped it off on my paper there. You don't want a whole bunch on your brush because you just want to go over that raised surface of this design to make it really pop. So that's what gives it a look of authenticity. You can really see like that tin, like it's been a piece of tin that you have aged or that has been around a long time, and then you have come back and repurposed it with a craft. So it's kind of fun to see the magic happen with that. Now I'm using some Beacon's glue here instead of some hot glue. Hot glue would work just fine. I just didn't really want to melt the tin. It's not really tin. I keep calling it tin, but you guys know what I mean. This faux tin. I didn't want the hot glue to melt it, so I thought I would give this glue a try. So I will just place this down on here and hold it. You can even use some of those little clamps from Dollar Tree, which ultimately is what I did just to let that glue set a little bit. Or you could just set it like this, walk away for a couple of minutes and let that completely dry. So I'm just showing you the kind of glue that I used here. So if you want to take a screenshot here of that, you can. Just pick it up at any craft store on Amazon. It works really well for doing projects like this. So now I'm just using it to glue on, and hot glue would work for this too, but I'm just using it on this little stem. This was just a stick that I found down at our farm when I was collecting sticks for all sorts of projects. So I just have a little baggie of those, just picked one out. So just head out into your yard, see what you've got, use for a cute little stem. But it looks cute like this, but I really feel that we need to soften that look between the wreath and the stem. So I'm using some Spanish moss. I'll just put a little bit of glue on there. I just use hot glue around the edge of this to put that on, so that way it kind of softens that look. Now I'm just taking some pipberry and wrapping it around a pencil to get a corkscrew shape to it. I love using pipberry. You guys know if you see me do pumpkins, I feel like I use this all the time in the pumpkins because it looks so cute and it really does bring that element of the pumpkin vines into it, that you get kind of that curly shape of the vines there. So it's really fun to add that in. So I typically always put it on my pumpkins just because I feel like it really adds that different element of cuteness to it. So again, totally optional. I just use some of this Beacon's glue down sitting in my Spanish moss, and then I just press this in and hold it until it sets. Doesn't take long for that glue to take hold of that, so it dries pretty quick on there. And then you can kind of bend your corkscrews in whatever shape or how long or short you want them. You can kind of pull out to be a little less curly if you want. And then I'm using some lamb's ear. I really do love the lamb's ear look with the pumpkins, that orange color, because I feel like that gray green color and the orange really complement each other well. I do want to point out that I know this is not what pumpkin leaves look like, but I do just like the colors together. So use what you've got in your stash. Use some leaves from Dollar Tree, some fall leaves. Leave the leaves off. Make it your own. It's going to be cute no matter what you do to it. I did just add a little touch more of the Spanish moss at the base of those leaves, so it kind of hides those little stems there and adds a little bit of a layered look to it, which I think were really cute. But overall, I'm loving how this pumpkin turned out. I'm just showing you what the back looks like from there. You could put a little hanger on there if you wanted, so that way you could hang it somewhere. But as a little shelf sitter, I think this turns out darling. You're going to have to let me know what you guys think of this. Do you like the projects using this press tin from Dollar Tree? Are you guys able to find it at your Dollar Tree? I feel like mine has really had a lot of it in stock lately, and I just love the element that it gives, that texture, and it's so fun to paint and have this two-tone look to it. What do you guys think of this project? Let me know down in the comments.
This DIY ends up being so cute in the end. I absolutely love it, and you can create it with all items from Dollar Tree. I am taking this little shadow box and I am removing the three-dimensional portion of it. Then I'm going to take some black paint and just completely paint the frame. You of course can leave the frame or paint it, do whatever colors you would like, but I'm going to be placing some scrapbook paper over the back portion of this shadow box, so I don't need to tape anything off. I can just go ahead and paint all around like such. And then I take this little pumpkin here. Now this came from Hobby Lobby, but they did have tons of different little wooden pumpkins at Dollar Tree. So I paint my pumpkin orange, and I'm going to paint this little block, which was a leftover piece from another DIY I did from a block from Dollar Tree. I'm just cutting down some scrapbook paper to size. I thought this little black and white buffalo check would be so cute for a contrast. And then I'm just using some purple school glue stick, which if you've been here for a minute, you know I absolutely love this stuff. And guys, I recently found my Cricut scraper, so I'm just using that to get all of the bubbles and things out. I'm just going to touch up my pumpkin, give it a little green stem there, and then I used my Cricut to cut out a jack-o'-lantern face. You could easily use a Sharpie to do this, but of course I don't freehand anything because I just do not have a talent for it. So I also cut out Happy Halloween, and I'm just going to take each of these and I'm going to glue them into the shadow box. And so this first block here that I'm gluing down, I don't need to raise it up any because it is, and whoops, I almost glued it upside down, but it is very thick and so it pops out well. But the little jack-o'-lantern is so thin, I'm just using a little teeny wooden block, and I use that to raise it up to give it that three-dimensional look. I think the colors of this turned out so cute, and I love that buffalo check paper in there. I feel like this is such a nice little addition for Halloween. It's not screaming like scary or gory or anything. It's just cute and sweet and totally my style. What do you guys think of this one? This is a fall recreation of one of my more popular tiered tray DIYs. This is one of those gnomes that you pick up at Dollar Tree that has a very questionable paint job. I'm just putting some white paint all over him to start with a blank canvas. Now, as I was doing this, my sweet daughter walked in and she goes, "Mom, I've been creating too." And she made this darling little flower for me just by folding some different paper. I thought I would just show it here because it was just so sweet that she brought this to me. And the little flower was having a little hard time sticking onto the stem, so I thought I would just glue it together. But I thought this was so sweet that she brought this to me to have to sit on my little craft table while I was making some DIYs. So I thought I would just leave this in here and share this cute little moment with you guys as well. Okay, back to painting our cute little guy here. I'm just going to make sure that I get a complete good coat of this white paint. If I need to do two. But this is such a fun project to do for any of these resin pieces. If you're not specifically into gnomes, any resin piece that you find at Dollar Tree or Target's Dollar Spot or Dollar General or anywhere, this is something you could do with all of these pieces and make it look a lot more neutral, more farmhouse, and kind of more your style. Now to bring a fall touch into him, I'm just going to paint his hat with a pumpkin orange color, just so that way when he sits on my tiered tray, he looks specifically more for fall, rather than the one I had done before was just left all white, just kind of more of a neutral, which is cute, but I thought it would be fun to have some for different seasons. So even like for Christmas, you could do a really cute like green or red hat on there. Now, after your paint's dried, you're just going to take your water-based antiquing wax. I just use Folk Art or Waverly, and I'm just going to take just like a stiff bristled brush and get this antiquing wax all over him everywhere. He's going to look like he's a chocolate bar by the time that you're done with this. So you're putting so much antiquing wax on him. And you just let that sit for a minute or two to kind of solidify a little bit. And then you're just going to take either a wet cloth, a wet wipe, a paper towel, and you're just going to wipe that antiquing wax back. And what's going to happen is it's going to stay in all of those little nooks and crannies, and it's going to make this look almost like stone, like it's been aged, sitting out, aging for a long time. Kind of like he's been sitting in your garden, bringing you good luck for a really long time, and now we're going to bring him in the house. And if you do feel like the antiquing wax is a little heavy, just take a little bit of your white paint. This is just what was left in my brush. And I just went over the high points to kind of brighten up those high points of all of that detail. But look at how cute he looks. I mean, you guys know that some of those paint jobs on those Dollar Tree gnomes or Dollar Tree items are pretty sketchy looking. And I just think he turned out so cute. Perfect to tuck into your tiered tray somewhere. And the possibilities with knowing this little trick and this little hack are endless with the different things that you can make and create. And even just by doing that little touch of his hat to make it more fall, you could do anything for any season. As I've been shopping around to get some ideas for different fall projects and autumn projects, I've seen a lot of black cats, not in a Halloween way, but more in just kind of a harvest fall time way. And I've really been loving them. So I thought I would make a piece with a black cat on here. I just thought it's, to me, just screams fall and autumn time. So I just printed this out from Google Images. I just searched for black cat silhouette and was able to cut that out, just printed it out. I'll leave a link to it down in my description box. So if you guys want to quickly find one, you can, but you can kind of match it to the size of your piece. Now I just cut that out and then I traced it on the back of one of these faux tin tiles that you get at Dollar Tree. I love using these for decor because I just feel like it has a nice vintage feel to it. Something that would be a typical farmhouse thing to do, of repurpose something like an old ceiling tin tile. So I just think these are so fun. Now I just freehanded kind of a pumpkin shape. So you could also Google a pumpkin shape, cut that out if you wanted something a little bit more symmetrical. I just kind of wanted to do something kind of abstract and just cut something out, kind of an organic feel. Now, of course, I just paint the cat black. I paint the pumpkin orange. It takes about 2 coats of the black, 3 coats of the orange. Now this sign I found at the thrift store, one of the recent trips that I took there. It looks like I think I paid $1 for it. You can tell clearly that at one point it came from Hobby Lobby. Someone just got tired of it. But I'm going to distress the frame a little bit to kind of make this look a little more rustic. Again, that's something I like to do. This worked perfectly because I didn't feel like I had to paint the frame or anything. I loved the color that was on there, but there were a few gouges in there and everything, so that just kind of makes the rustic tie-in. Now, these are those cutting mats that you get at Dollar Tree. There's 2 in a package. And since this has a tin background here and it has a cutout on that, I wanted to completely cover this. So this is just kind of my idea. I was seeing if it worked. It actually works quite well. I just kind of press that cutting mat into the picture, run my finger along it, and then I just trim it to size to go right into my picture. And now this is one of the peel and stick wallpaper or wall stickers that you can get at Dollar Tree. Any type of wood pattern or design they had, or whatever designer pattern you feel that would work great. This is just a great hack that you could translate into any season or any DIY, but I just cover that cutting mat, and then you can see it fits in so well. Now I want this to be a little bit more of a permanent hold on here, so I'm just using my trusty Elmer school glue to go over that mat. And then I'm going to place it down onto the background here. That's going to cover that completely. Now you could do the same thing on the back side if you're going to sell this or you want to make it double-sided. I just went ahead with some black cardstock and cut it kind of down to size, and I'm just placing that on the back. The reason why I'm doing that is since it had that cutout letters where it said thankful, the light was shining through and you could see it through on the other side, and I did not want that. But this would be a perfect sign, and I may come back at a later time and make this a double-sided sign. I think that would be so fun. Now on my little cat that I cut out here, I'm going to use some craft sticks to glue down in a straight line down its back. I'm going to pop this out with some Jenga blocks, and I'm doing this so that way it gives a little bit more, literally a backbone to this cat. So it's not going to be kind of flopping around anywhere. This just kind of adds some stability. It's going to give me a place to glue my Jenga sticks or Jenga blocks onto and make this cat have a backbone. And you can see here I'm just taking some Jenga blocks and I'll glue 3 down so that way when I glue it onto the surface, it's going to pop out and give you that 3D element. You do the same thing with the pumpkin, just glue a Jenga block onto the back of that, and he just needed one, that little pumpkin did. Now the fun part of using these faux ceiling tiles is that you get to make that design pop. So I'm taking just a little bit of folk art metallic silver paint. I felt like if the paint was to scratch off of an actual ceiling tile, you would get like a coppery or a silver, some type of metallic tone to it. So I thought that was really fun. I just dry brushed that over both of those. Now I just used a bunch of scrap ribbon that I had to make this bow. There are so many different treatments you could do to your cat, even just a couple little wraps of twine around its neck with a simple little bow or a button. Kind of decide how much you want to embellish this. I just did a couple, like 3 or 4 different types of ribbons and just tied some bows and tied them together with a zip tie. And then for my pumpkin stem, this is just a stick that came from our farm. I love to use these as pumpkin stems. I kind of collect them whenever we have a windstorm. We get a lot of fun branches that fall down, and I'll find some cute little sticks. And I just have a bucket of them I use for different stems or different things like that. It's kind of fun to bring that in. Plus it's free. Now I have this little wooden tag and I'm just stamping Hello Fall. I'm using some Dollar Tree stamps, and I thought it would be fun to kind of mix the fonts up, kind of make it look a little whimsical. Now comes the fun part of putting everything together here. So I'm just making sure that my sign is completely free of any debris, and I just kind of place my little kitty cat down there, and then I kind of, while that glue is still hot, you can kind of manipulate where you want him set, if you want him up a little bit. I even tried to put a little Spanish moss underneath him to see like if he was sitting on a bed of Spanish moss. I didn't love it, but that's something just to give you an idea of something else that you could do. And then I'm just going to stack my little pumpkin right next to this cute little kitty cat. Now I want to add that tag to our pumpkin, so I just make a little raffia bow with just a little bit of raffia, and then I add a little bit of Spanish moss underneath him there just to kind of add a little bit more softness to it. Overall, I think this turns out so cute. I think this would be such a fun little cozy piece to have for fall time. I love black cats this time of year, and I love that they're not just Halloween, that you can have them. That just kind of means harvest time, fall time. I just think this is so stinking cute. What do you guys think?
This is a perfect project if you don't want to necessarily do obvious Halloween in your house, but maybe want to just incorporate Halloween colors. So I got this little firework pillar at my local thrift store, and I'm just taking out, you can see that rope just popped right out of there, had some little wire in the rope there, and then I'm just going to clean this up by wiping it down really good. We're just going to give this a paint job and add a couple little details to it to make it feel a little bit more Halloweenish.
After I give this a thorough couple of coats of white or plaster chalk paint, I believe it is, I tape off some stripes, and then I just take this out to my little spray paint studio, which, as we all know, is just a box that our bathroom sink came in, but it works perfect to spray paint things in to stop the spread of that spray paint going everywhere. But I just spray paint it black, and it really only took one coat of the black spray paint to get really good coverage. And I had these two little square wooden I don't know, wooden squares, I guess you'd just say they were, that I got at Dollar Tree. They come in like a pack of 6. So I spray paint those because I am going to put those on either end. So here comes the satisfying part of me tearing off my paint to reveal my crisp, clear, what we hope are crisp and clear lines from the black and white stripes. After I reveal my lines, I decide that this is such a very rustic pillar. Like, this piece of wood has a lot of little blemishes and knots and things in it. So I decide to embrace that, and I distress it. That, of course, is a completely optional thing, but it does match my decor, so that's why I did this. And then I do, since I distressed the pillar, I go in and distress each of these little wood squares for the top and the bottom of the pillar. Using some E6000 and hot glue, I then go in and glue the top and the bottom on. So what you'll see I do here is I have my pillar standing up like this. I place my square on and then turn it upside down to kind of measure it and make sure that I get it centered really well. And I do that when I glue both ends on. Here's what this pillar looks like with a cute little pumpkin on the top of it. You can see how this definitely is not obvious Halloween, but using the correct colors and everything, it definitely brings that Halloween vibe into your decorating. This is such a fun little hack. So I got this Gather little beaded garland sign at Hobby Lobby. It's from their spring section. You can see it says $7.99. So I bought it on clearance, but typically their seasonal items you can get like at 40% off bare minimum. So I flip this over, and I'm going to have a Halloween saying on this side of it. So then when I'm done, I can flip it over and have it say Gather for Thanksgiving. The paint was chipped on the back of this when I opened it up. So rather than repainting the whole thing and messing with the beads and the twine, I decided to just embrace that and make it look intentional. So that's why I am distressing this. I had not planned on doing that. So just keep that in mind if when you try this hack, if yours looks fine and you don't want to distress it, by all means don't. Now you can choose whatever saying you want to say on this. You can use rub-on transfers, you can use stickers, whatever you would like. I cut these out on my Cricut. It just says boo with the exclamation point and the 2 little black cats. I just love those. And then you can see I can flip it over and have the other side say Gather. I just love this hack. I think it turned out so cute, and I'm excited to use this one this year. When I was at Hobby Lobby looking for some inspiration, I did find these cute little pumpkins that were there. And so I do have an idea that I want to try with this. So I do take this little bit of embellishment that they have on here, the leaf and this little sunflower on here. I do just remove those. I do end up using them again. And I do take this little hanging tag off of there. I did not want the blue on there. I have a very specific idea that I want to try. So I do cover this completely in white chalk paint, the front and all of the edges, just to make sure that it has a good coat of the white paint all over. So that way it just looks really good. So then I take this out into my garage, and I am going to drill several holes in this. I know this sounds a little bit odd, but just bear with me, watch what I do. So I do want to do my holes in pairs. So I need 4 holes in 3 different sections on each side. That does not make sense. I know when I say that, you're like, wait, what? So just watch what I do here. So I'm going to do, here we go, 12 holes on each side, if that makes sense here. But I'm doing them like one right next to the other. So this is what your pumpkin will look like once you get all of your holes drilled in. Now you could just leave it that white color. You could paint it any color you wanted. I chose this paper that looked like book, like pages out of a book. Again, I just trace this. I do cut the pumpkin stem off because I want to have control over the color of the pumpkin stem. And then I am just going to use my trusty old glue stick here, and I'm going to glue the scrapbook paper onto the front right over the holes that we just drilled in here. And I'm going to use my Mod Podge roller, which again is linked down in my description box, and then my emery board to go in a downward motion all around the edges of this to make sure that you have a really clean edge. I take a pencil and just poke through each of these holes so I know where the holes are. And then you can see what I do with the pencil. I can go through and clear those holes out, and that gives me that nice clean edge on them. I am going to put some Mod Podge over this to make sure that it stays down, make sure that through all of like the little holes and all of the edges and everything that they are firmly secure. And I do want it to kind of have a little bit of a glossy sheen. Now I just take some Dollar Tree rope and I unwind it and take one of the strands, and this is just like lacing cards, guys. Did you ever have those that you used to play with and sit and lace up all the cute little designs that they had on there? So I just put some painter's tape on the end, and I'm just going up and down through each of these holes. And you can watch how I go through and get this side completed. I just move right, don't stop or cut it off or anything. I just move right over to the next side, and I go in an up and down motion through that side too. Again, I apologize. My camera was being very finicky and I did lose some footage here. I think my storage was full. So I'm just showing you that I did glue a little piece of scrap wood on the back to help it stand up, and I did tie the rope off. And then I took that original embellishment that came on it and I just rewired that back on. I mean, it was literally like you put the wire around and twist tie it. I do take a little bit of antiquing wax and go around the edges. You can see I did paint the stem of the pumpkin with a green color there. I just think this was kind of a different take on something. I don't know. I thought it was really cute. I love the little rustic rope going through the holes on there. What do you guys think of this? It's a little bit different, but I actually really like how this turned out, and I'm so excited to combine all of my pumpkins together that I've made. One of the fun things of being a creator and a crafter is a lot of times you'll just be at the craft store or a boutique store or somewhere, and you'll see really cute things and you'll think, hey, I think I can probably make that. So I saw these cute pumpkins at Hobby Lobby and thought, I can probably make something similar. So I did just buy the largest size dowel that they had at Hobby Lobby. Make sure that you get it when it's on sale. That way it was only a couple of dollars. And I measured them down, and I cut, these are 6 inches that I cut this first set as, and I paint this set completely orange. I cut 4 of them because I'm going to glue them together to make one pumpkin. And then my next set, I believe I cut, these are 3 inches that I cut. And so I paint these a green color. These are just kind of the colors that I'm going with for fall this year. And this is all Waverly chalk paint that I'm using. I absolutely love the Waverly chalk paint. And I do just use a little bit of wood glue and then just a teeny bit of hot glue. That just gives it that little bit of a temporary hold, so that way you can kind of make sure that it really does adhere. So I'm going to glue the 4 orange ones together, and then I'll go back in and glue the green ones together also. After I did those 2, I decided I needed one more, but I did not have any more of that size of dowel. So I did take just a plunger handle and I cut these down to be right in between these 2 sizes, which I think ended up being about 4.5 inches. And then just the same process, I painted them with white and I glued them together, everything like that. And then we're on to making a stem for these. For the stem, I just used some scrap pieces of dowel wood. You could even use like the handles off of some of the foam brushes that you've used would work. Even like a stick from your yard would work fine. Just anything that looks like a stem, and you're just going to cover it in a brown or green or whatever color of paint you'd like to use. The next thing that I do is I go in and on all of the edges on these little pumpkins, I take the antiquing wax and I just kind of go over them to kind of make them pop, make it look like the little ridges that you see in a pumpkin. It kind of makes all those edges show. So I just really kind of go in and distress these really good. So then I just take the hot glue and I just glue each of the little stems onto the pumpkin. I did a green stem on my white pumpkin and my orange pumpkin, and then a brown stem on my green pumpkin. So I kind of like the way that looked. And then I do decide they need a little something extra. So you can see there that I just go ahead and tie a couple raffia bows to put on them. Look at how cute these look. I think they turned out so cute and so fun. Now, the ones I saw at Hobby Lobby only came in orange, so I'm so excited that I got to make my own and kind of have them in the colors that I want. I think you're going to really like how this DIY turns out. I have this cute little house that I got at Hobby Lobby, but I've seen them at Dollar Tree. And then I've also got this little ironing board that I got at Dollar Tree also. So what I'm going to do is make a mark on the top of this ironing board. You'll have to see if you can guess what I'm going to make out of this. And I'm just going to cut this off. So you can use an X-Acto knife, a box cutter, and do it that way. I just happen to have my saw right there, so that's what I used. And I am going to round out the edges on the bottom so they're not quite so square. And I'm just making sure that this kind of fits the size with my house of how I want. So however big you want to make this, you'll do it according to your measurements. So I tape off a couple of stripes because I'm making a candy corn out of the ironing board. And of course, the top is going to be white, the middle will be orange, and the bottom will be yellow. So I'm just using Waverly's chalk paint in the pumpkin, and I believe maize is the color of the yellow. So you can use whatever kind of acrylic paint or chalk paint you would like. The yellow on this is not very bright, and the orange is a little bit more muted than a traditional candy corn, but it does match the decor that I've made this year, so I'm okay with that. So I'm just going to remove my tape here and see how my lines came out. I think I did a pretty good job on getting those crisp, clear lines right there. So now I want to make some beads that are candy corn color. So I just take some wooden beads and I do 6 beads total, 2 of each color of the white, the orange, and the yellow. Now, however you want to handle this next part is completely optional, but I'm going to be using some scrapbook paper because I have a little bit of a hole in the middle of my house there. I got this on a very good sale at Hobby Lobby because of that, but I don't have a piece of paper big enough, so I'm just using a couple of pieces and just matching up the seam there where the plaid is. My candy corn will cover the majority of this, so it's not super crucial to be so exact, but I do want the plaid to line up for the rest of the house. So now I'm just taking some scissors and cutting off the excess, and then I will just use my nail file, whatever you use, a sanding block, finger sander. You'll use that around the edge to make that a crisp, clean edge. And now I'm just taking some twine. I wrap it around like 3 times, and I'll just tie that off right here. And then I am going to thread on my beads in candy corn order. So I do the white on top, and then I do the orange and then the yellow. And I kind of offset these so my next strand of beads will be hanging just a little bit lower than the first strand. But I'll let you watch how I do that and how that looks. I take a little bit of twine and wrap it around my hand and then tie it off in the middle to make a cute little twine bow here to put at the top of my little hanging bead strands. And of course, you know me, I have to just dress something, if not everything, in my video. So I do sand the candy corn to kind of soften the edges, give it a little bit of a rustic look. I go around all of the edges, and then I also go in the middle there and kind of go over the yellow, the orange, and the white just to give it a really rustic look. I want to make sure that I match up the bottom of the candy corn with the house so it will stand really well. So once I get my position figured out and where I want that candy corn to do, I just kind of lift it up and glue underneath. I noticed I had a little bit of painter's tape on the back there. I do end up removing that, so just be aware of that. Now, I have these little Halloween figures that I have had for years. Some of these, like my mom gave me, that were from my childhood even. So I'm just kind of playing around because I really like the way each of these look. Here's what it looks like plain. And then I've got my cute little witch I could set in front of it, my little pumpkin. So whatever you have that you want to add, if you want to add a little more detail, you can. I personally like the look of the black cat there, so that's what I am displaying in front of mine. Which would you use on yours? This is a perfect project if you don't want to necessarily do obvious Halloween in your house, but maybe want to just incorporate Halloween colors. So I got this little firework pillar at my local thrift store, and I'm just taking out, you can see that rope just popped right out of there, had some little wire in the rope there, and then I'm just going to clean this up by wiping it down really good. We're just going to give this a paint job and add a couple little details to it to make it feel a little bit more Halloweenish. After I give this a thorough couple of coats of white or plaster chalk paint, I believe it is, I tape off some stripes, and then I just take this out to my little spray paint studio, which, as we all know, is just a box that our bathroom sink came in, but it works perfect to spray paint things in to stop the spread of that spray paint going everywhere. But I just spray paint it black, and it really only took one coat of the black spray paint to get really good coverage. And I had these two little square wooden wooden squares, I guess you'd just say they were, that I got at Dollar Tree. They come in like a pack of 6. So I spray paint those because I am going to put those on either end. So here comes the satisfying part of me tearing off my paint to reveal my crisp, clear, what we hope are crisp and clear lines from the black and white stripes. After I reveal my lines, I decide that this is such a very rustic pillar, like this piece of wood has a lot of little blemishes and knots and things in it. So I decide to embrace that and I distress it. That, of course, is a completely optional thing, but it does match my decor, so that's why I did this. And then since I distressed the pillar, I go in and distress each of these little wood squares for the top and the bottom of the pillar. Using some E6000 and hot glue, I then go in and glue the top and the bottom on. So what you'll see I do here is I have my pillar standing up like this. I place my square on and then turn it upside down to kind of measure it and make sure that I get it centered really well. And I do that when I glue both ends on. Here's what this pillar looks like with a cute little pumpkin on the top of it. You can see how this definitely is not obvious Halloween, but using the correct colors and everything, it definitely brings that Halloween vibe into your decorating. I found this darling little baking dish at Dollar Tree, and I'm not much of a baker, to be honest, but I thought it would be darling for using for fall decor. And so I'm just taking some Spanish moss to place in there. You can hot glue it in. You can just set it in, whatever you would like to do on this. I just thought it would be kind of fun to have this sitting in with my china hutch with some of the little dishes, bringing just that feel of fall with the cute little baking dish. And now these little pumpkins came from Dollar Tree, and they are on a clip. I know a lot of YouTubers have used these for other things, and they'll take the clip off, but I thought it would be kind of nice to be able to clip them into that Spanish moss rather than having to use a ton of glue. That way I can take them off. I can do it again. I could change out if I wanted to put something different in this little baking dish. It does say on this baking dish though that it's like dishwasher and microwavable safe and stuff, so it looks like it's totally food safe if you want to use it for that. But if you just want a cute little dish to put some pumpkins in and have it be a cute little vignette, I think that this is perfect. I think it turns out really cute, and it's something that is so simple and easy. What do you guys think of this one? Thank you for taking the time to watch this compilation mega video. If you have made it this far, I would love if you would consider hitting that subscribe button and becoming a member of our crafting community. If you did like any of today's projects, remember to hit that thumbs up. But again, have such a wonderful day and happy crafting. If you like the video that you just saw and you want to keep crafting together, here's another video that you might enjoy. And as always, remember to like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.